That's all the energy I got. Good morning and welcome to the second day of Women of Innovation. I am Tracy Altman. I'm a member of the DEC. I'm a member of the DEC board, and I'm super happy to be part of the Dallas Startup Week this week. Yesterday we had two amazing keynotes, and we have even more amazing information today. If you missed us yesterday, make sure you go on to YouTube and look up the DEC network, and we've got the Curlers founder and the Beauty Bio founder on all of their sessions from yesterday on there, and we'll be taping the rest of the day as well. Really, really great information for all of us women entrepreneurs. If you don't know about the DEC, I encourage you to go on and figure us out, because we do a lot of things throughout the year. We do a lot of funding, we do programming, really great information for all of us women entrepreneurs. Mentorship is so important. I encourage you a little bit of there we go. Mentorship is so important, and we have a huge program. So if you need somebody, we're the place to be. We love entrepreneurs, and we're here to support you. We're a nonprofit. So again, go look us up on any of our social channels or on the DEC network on the web. I'm super excited to introduce our next moderator. Gabe is actually from our sponsor. Thomas Roy has been a huge supporter of us. Not only just, hey, here's money, but she is actively involved both last year and this year in programming. They believe in the woman entrepreneur, and that's the kind of sponsors we want. People who really believe in what we're doing, not just we don't want to just take money. We like money, but we do want people who really believe in women entrepreneurs, and that Dallas is going to be the place to be if you are a woman entrepreneur. So it's my honor and pleasure. Gabe, take it away. We like money, but we do want people.
Thomson Reuters is excited to be a sponsor of this year's Dallas Startup Week, and hope everyone is gaining great information to assist them in their journey, whether it be as an entrepreneur. Thomson Reuters is excited to be a sponsor of this year's Dallas Startup Week, and are y'all hearing feedback? To assist them in their journey, whether it be as an entrepreneur. Are y'all hearing feedback? Okay, is that better?
A little bit, Gabe. They're working on it. At least everyone knows it's authentically live.
Okay, is that better?
A little bit, Gabe. They're working on it. At least everyone knows it's authentically live.
Okay, they think it's me. Okay, what do I need to do, you guys? Do I need to leave backstage, you guys? It's me. Okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to leave backstage, you guys? Joni, you go ahead and start.
Okay, there we go. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for staying with us through a few technical difficulties and a little bit of feedback. It wouldn't be 2020 without a little bit of difficulty. In any case, thank you so much, Gabe, for helping make this session possible, and for all that you do in the Dallas area and beyond for education, for heart health, for leadership development. You are a true treasure. So today, I am beyond excited to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that is innovation and leadership. But I have to be super honest with you guys. As I was thinking about what to talk about in this session, I questioned myself. I looked at the attendees, which is a group of amazing leaders, and I thought, what can I bring that these folks haven't already thought about or that they're not already doing? And it struck me that in the last few years, I've had a bit of a personal journey of my own. And so today I want to bring you into that journey and really give you yourselves. I want you to think about your own experiences and lessons learned as I walk through my story, where I have a dream job. I get to work with a first lady. I have an amazing team. I help the planet, and I get to innovate. So amazing opportunity all the way around. But first, I want you to think about the sessions that you may be planning to attend beyond this, where you're going to learn about branding and metrics and things to do for your business today. I want right now for us to step back and get ourselves in the mindset of how we got here and how we can uniquely address the questions that arise in the sessions we attend today, and how to deal with problems as we move forward. Because in this session of incredible leaders, we have more paths to innovation and success than we probably have even imagined yet. So I want you to think about what makes you an innovator. What is your story? How are you using your unique gifts and experiences to push the envelope of innovation? And I always start with definitions. Like, what is innovation even? If you look it up in Webster's, it's a new method, it's a new idea, it's a new product. And I agree with that, but I actually like to push it further. To me, it's a state of being. It's about being tuned in, it's about being creative, it's about engaging with your world. So today I appreciate you humoring me as I start with what I know best, which is my own journey. I'll start with where I am today, the road that led me here, and ultimately what I see as commonalities and actionable items on the innovation landscape. The things that, if you peel back the messaging and the layers of innovation and leadership, you see most successful innovators and leaders doing this. So I am the CEO of Texan by Nature. I probably should have started with that. But Texan by Nature is a conservation nonprofit founded by former First Lady Laura Bush in 2011. I've been at the helm since November of 2017, after spending my formative years in a variety of roles and location. Texan by Nature, if you haven't heard of it, fills a unique role in conservation in Texas, not only due to our founder, but also due to our focus and how we achieve our mission and our goals. Mrs. Bush founded our organization with two dear friends, with the belief that our long-term prosperity and health are dependent upon our natural resources. At Texan by Nature, we bring conservation and business together, which is a little bit unique in the conservation landscape. We bring these groups together for the positive impact for people, prosperity, and natural resources. We have a unique model of conservation. It's a service model, if you will. We act as a partner and an accelerator for database conservation projects across Texas, and as a trusted strategic advisor for industry partners. We bring these two together. In doing this, we expand conservation efforts across Texas and increase both the spend and the activity within conservation. Our long-term goal is that every Texan and every business operating in Texas will have conservation as part of their mindset and their decision framework. It'll be part of who they are. I'm happy to report that even in a pandemic year, we are making great strides in 2020 towards achieving this goal. But how did we get here? How did we get in this place of having a different model of bringing conservation to business and business to conservation? What does this journey have in common with each of you? We got here by owning our passions and experiences and bringing these to the table every single day. Every single leader, every single one of you can do this. We got here by asking a lot of what if questions. What if we paired these groups together? What if we used a different methodology? What if we focused on bringing business to conservation and conservation to business? Well, every member of our team, from Mrs. Bush to myself, brings something different and asks what if in a different way. I know my own journey best, so I hope you'll humor me because I want to start with sharing it first. I was born in Dallas and spent the first 8 years of my life in Rowlett, which is a suburb of Dallas. My dad was an engineering manager, and my mom was taking a break from teaching during that time to stay home with my 3 brothers and me. Even during this time, I had a front row view of entrepreneurship in action. My mom ran a monogram and gift shop out of our house and ultimately set up a storefront. And my dad transformed the back of our yard into fruit trees and vegetables and honeybee hives. And he ultimately started extracting the honey and selling it. And then he developed this keen interest in farmers markets and what we now call organic or clean food. Ultimately, my dad turned his passion into a business. I like to say we were granola before granola was cool. My team informs me that granola still isn't cool, so at least I know they're honest and comfortable with me. Well, we moved from the Dallas area to a farming community called Champion when I was in elementary. This is one of those places that is outside of a town with 1 store, which is outside of a town with 2 stores, which is outside of another town, which is outside of another town until you reach the city of Abilene, which is an hour from Champion. So it was small, very, very small. My graduating class had 15 people, and that was considered a very big class at the time. My dad bought land in this community and built commercial greenhouses with the help of my older brothers. We sold hydroponic tomatoes year-round. During the summer, we did field crops, including squash, Texas sweet onions, watermelon, cantaloupe, and then a variety of smaller crops. I grew up working in the greenhouses and in the fields, and ultimately doing the farmer's market by myself once I could drive. This honed many skills for me, including math, which led me to Texas A&M University to major in industrial engineering. Some people call industrial engineering people engineering. Some call it imaginary, but we'll go with people. Industrial engineering is looking at how to most efficiently bring together people and process, which has played a big role in how we bring people and projects together at Texan by Nature. I could spend the rest of my time, as you know any Aggie could, talking about Texas A&M and my learning from student leadership and travel, but I'll spare you all of that, and maybe we can get coffee sometime and I can share more. But I'll fast forward to my first job as an operation consultant at Kurt Salmon Associates. At KSA, we worked with retail operations, so sewing facilities and distribution centers. And there was a partner who liked to show up unannounced at projects. He would come and find you on the floor. And this partner was a formidable man. He had played football at Georgia Tech. He was huge. He took up a lot of space, both physically and with his intelligence. He was also brilliant. Well, the work that we did as entry-level consultants was a bit monotonous at times. They hired a lot of industrial engineers, and we would spend time on the floor time cycling. So basically holding a stopwatch and clicking it every 10 to 20 seconds while you figured out how long it should take to do a job. You would do that for 6 to 8 hours straight. And one day I was in the middle of time cycling. I had been there for about 6 hours and of course glazed over, completely zoned out. And this partner showed up on the floor, completely unexpected. It's like, Joni, what you doing? What have you learned today? Tell me 3 things that you have learned and how you're going to apply those moving forward. Well, of course, I was surprised, and I stumbled through a completely uninspiring answer. And he patiently said, that's interesting. Well, then he pointed out all the different ways that you could look around and actually see in under a minute what the throughput of the facility was, how things were going, ways to innovate on the process that was being used. And it was a moment where I was sufficiently humbled because I'd been working in this facility for 6 months and hadn't noticed any of this. And more importantly, I was taught. And I'll come back to that later. But I took my KSA knowledge, I transitioned it to an industrial engineering and operations management role in the medical device industry. In this role, I had the opportunity to lead planning for a piece of our manufacturing expansion to Costa Rica and Ireland. I found the work incredibly fascinating. It allowed me to work with marketing and sales and finance for the first time. But I quickly learned that my farming, engineering, operations background used a completely different vocabulary than these functions. I learned that while math is math, messaging is critical. I also realized that I loved long-term planning and strategy. It was fascinating to me. And it led me to go to business school to do a dual degree in business and master's in engineering management. It set me up for a big career change into marketing and strategy. So coming out of business school, I worked in technology, planning product lines, developing market perspectives, setting up 3-year planning processes and teams. It broadened my analytical skill set and set me up to start my tech startup journey. I joined a 6-year-old tech startup after roles at bigger companies like Dell and Polycom, and a former boss pulled me to the startup world. Within that startup, I took turns everywhere where I was needed: marketing, planning, product management. 2 years in, we were fortunate enough to have an exit event, what we call an acqui-hire, where Groupon came in and they bought an instance of the technology for a completely different use case, and also bought our founders and our development team. But our original investor wanted to keep the train going on K-12 family engagement, which was the focus of our technology, and he wanted me to be the new CEO. So I took that CEO role, and I took the opportunity and rebuilt the team and grew our user base to 1 million. We acquired other technologies, we completed a funding round, and set a growth plan for multiple years. It was an exciting time. It was hard, and there were some dark times too, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But 3 years into that experience of learning, I took my first real vacation in a while. And it turned out to be a soul-searching vacation. We were in the mountains, got a lot of time to think. And I really started thinking about the next 3 to 5 years for my company, and how the fact that we were in a place where it was going to be very sales heavy. There was going to be less emphasis on market development. And that really was different than where my passion and my skills were at that time. And I was thinking about, am I still the right person for this role? But by the end of the vacation, I came home and I was ready to go. I was ready to find joy in the challenge in front of me. It was something new, something different. But then the phone rang. A business school friend of mine had given my name to a recruiter looking for a CEO for a conservation nonprofit. The organization was looking for someone with a strategy background to take the organization in a new direction. As we talked, my wheels started turning, and I got very curious about the conservation landscape in Texas and beyond. The players, the key concerns, the gaps. I started looking at it exactly how I looked at market planning when I was in technology. And it became very interesting to me that there was an opportunity to apply a technology and a startup model to a conservation group and significantly change the trajectory of projects across Texas. So I really entered, again, a time of self-reflection, and then I ultimately had the opportunity to merge my ed tech firm with another firm and place their CEO over the top, one who was very adept at sales, which is where we were. And I took that opportunity to become the CEO of Texan by Nature in November of 2017. As I mentioned, Texan by Nature brings conservation and business together. It was founded on Mrs. Bush's journey. Growing up in Midland, spending time in El Paso, learning about stars, birds, and the outdoors from her mother and grandmother, respecting Lady Bird Johnson and her impact on the roadways of Texas, caring for our national parks as First Lady of the United States, and developing a vast following in these roles. Mrs. Bush, when she moved back to Texas, she embraced her journey. She looked back at what she had passion for. And if you guys know, she started the book festival and works with women's initiatives in the Middle East. Well, nature is her other deep passion. So she took all of her experiences and put them together to found Texan by Nature. And so in 2017, the board was looking for a way to build Texan by Nature's impact and work with industry. And in hiring a person from strategy, I was able to bring market development, service experience, strategy, and passion for changing models to the organization. Since 2017, combining Mrs. Bush's passions and our other board members' passions and my team's passions, we've built our conservation partner network to 80 strong, worked with almost every industry in Texas, and we transformed our programs. We've accelerated projects that have impacted every single one of Texas's 11 ecoregions and 65% of our counties. We've created opportunity for action at the individual, the corporate, and the community level. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say you can join us as an individual or as a group. You can go to texanbynature.org and check that out, given that we want every single person to be Texan by nature. But that's my story. It's where we are today. I was born in the city, raised in the country, went to a large public university, was a consultant, an operations manager, went to business school, technology marketing and strategy, product management, technology CEO, conservation nonprofit CEO, nature lover, data geek, challenge seeker, with a somewhat patient but always supportive husband and 2 special boys along the way. It is a meandering path, but it's one that's 100% unique to me. It's uncovered many lessons that I've used to innovate in my career, particularly in the last few years at Texan by Nature. These are lessons that I've seen applied by innovators across many industries. And so what I would like for you to do, I'm going to walk through 10 lessons learned or highlights that have helped transform my career and my path. But I'd like for you to think about yourself as I walk through these, because if you even go as far back as childhood, those experiences impact how you see the world. And if you think about what you've learned at each point along the way, that's something that's very special to you. So first, I'll start with embrace your background. Little did I know that my journey would come full circle when I started my career in consulting. I bounced from Georgia, well, Texas first. I bounced from Texas to Georgia to Mexico to Florida to Canada to California and to Illinois before coming back to Texas. I've ended up drawing on my roots as a farmer's daughter, a principal's daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother, an entrepreneur, a workforce grunt, a CEO. Each experience informed my knowledge and shaped how I see problems. It shaped how I generate solutions, and it shapes how I view my role in innovation. Recently, there's been a movement for people to bring their whole selves to work, and I couldn't agree more. More doors have opened for me since I truly embraced my background. I have to admit, somewhat ashamedly, that I didn't talk about my upbringing for a long time. I had enough trouble being a woman in engineering that I didn't need to also say that I was a country bumpkin and went to these tiny schools. But that's something that is unique and helps me look at the world differently. And in opening that piece up and embracing that piece of my background, it opened the door to Texan by Nature for me, and has had so many conversations with our partners as well. So I encourage you to embrace your background all the way back. Number 2, be flexible and adapt. Be open to what the world brings. I laugh. My first day in the workforce was actually a snow day in Atlanta. I went to the office. It was closed. There was only a partner there. And I showed up, did my paperwork, slid it under the door, and was on a plane for Mexico that evening. I ended up staying in Mexico for 6 weeks, which was an incredible experience. I learned about international communication. I learned about sewing floor operations. I learned about the local culture, and it set me up to be much more flexible and be able to adapt to whatever was thrown at me. Being flexible in thinking and adapting to new situations, it's almost like the fail fast and move on philosophy. If you are flexible and you try to look at things in a different way, you are more able to make that mistake and just move on for it as you're constantly adapting. That's what part of innovation is. Third, be present, observe and think, ask your what ifs. I mentioned the shameful experience earlier at shamefully failing when the partner came out and said, "Joni, what have you learned today?" It was a lesson I have never forgotten. No matter how monotonous the meeting, no matter how small the task, be present. There are always ways to think, to improve. You just have to look for them. Observe. How can this be better? What if this constraint weren't in place? What if I brought a different partner? What if these assumptions are wrong? This is something that I think is vital in every single role. And it's something that within my team at Texan by Nature, they do so well. It's always this culture of improvement. What if we did this? What if we streamlined the process? And it has helped us achieve more partnership and more project results than fathomable just 4 years ago. The value and innovation that one thinking team member of being present and observing and truly thinking is immeasurable. But if you're able to inspire and work with the entire team to do that, the difference and the innovation is exponential. Next, identify your weaknesses. The weaknesses. Sometimes I think that age is a blessing because you become so much more comfortable with just calling a spade and sharing your failings. I see many innovators, myself included earlier in my career, that they want to be good at everything. They don't want to talk about what they don't know or aren't strong at. And I found that a more powerful place for me is to truly understand my weakness, identify that, and be very open with it. I'm open about that with my team. I'm open about that in interview processes, and I have a plan. It's either I'm working a development plan to improve that weakness and get it to the best level that it can be, or I'm hiring the right team members to offset that. And so addressing those areas of need and the weaknesses, it allows for you to be an effective leader, and it allows for your team to be very transparent where they are as well. An example I'll give in moving from running a technology company to Texan by Nature, my weakness was sales. It was a weakness not only in lack of experience, it was a weakness in who I am as a leader. And it was going to be a place where I wasn't passionate. And I truly believe that if I had stayed in that role and not identified that I wasn't right for that point in time, the company and team would have struggled. So I can't really emphasize that enough. Know your weaknesses and have a plan around them. Next is to build your network, to collaborate. So for an introvert, yours truly, network building is not easy. It's not first nature. It takes time. It takes purpose. It's critically important, though, in expanding perspective and keeping abreast of trends, opportunities, important information. A mentor of mine recently pointed out that there's this trend with entrepreneurs to be stealth mode, not wanting to tell anybody about their ideas. But those are new entrepreneurs. The seasoned entrepreneurs tell everybody what they're doing, and they use their networks to fail fast and to be flexible and to adapt. Again, being an introvert and looking at how do I build a network, I didn't do a good job of this until I went to business school. I was a little reticent to open up, to share, to really be part of building different relationships. But I've found that for introverts, and probably for all, but particularly for folks who it might not come naturally, I focus on areas of interest. In business school, it started with outdoors, triathlon, travel, entrepreneurship, leadership, to build meaningful, deep connections with my network and to get beyond the surface talk so that you really can hear a new perspective. My network is 100% responsible for opening the doors for the CEO roles that I have held. Texan by Nature would never have even called if a business school classmate who had been in leadership roles with me in business school had not told them to call me. So those networks are important, not only for your advancement, but also for just picking up the phone and brainstorming with someone and getting a different perspective so that you can look at a problem in a different way. Know your metrics and stand by them. And if some people like to jokingly say they don't like math, I've already said I'm a self-professed data geek, but knowing my metrics and being confident in them when pressed had made all the difference when I was raising money, when I was running strategy and market development at much larger, $60 billion firms. because I was pushed, I was pressed. It was, oh, that can't be right. How are you looking at this? Being able to go into a conversation, whether you're looking for money, whether you are talking with a team member about their development, being able to bring an objective framework and be able to explain how you arrived at those metrics is critically important. It's critically important for setting goals as well. So I encourage you, take the time, and it can take a lot of time, but know your metrics, stand by them, and have a metric for as much of your organization as you can. Next, step up, whether you're ready or not. At some point, if not many points on your innovation journey, you will be tapped to do something different or bigger than what you may have ever imagined for yourself. If it pulls at your passion, if it pulls at your soul, say yes. Do not doubt yourself out of the opportunity. You will learn, you will grow, you will identify your weaknesses, you will rise to the occasion. Some people call this fake it till you make it. I say that if you've been tapped to do something, someone sees that you can do it, and you can. Don't think of all the reasons you can't. Step up and embrace the challenge. Your journey has prepared you in a way that is 100% unique to you. If passion and soul are calling, you're entering the sweet spot for innovation and doing something new and different. Was I ready to run a technology company? Maybe. Boy, did I learn a lot. I'd be ready now. Was I ready to run a conservation nonprofit with limited conservation experience and zero nonprofit experience? Some would have said, absolutely not. But our success over the last 3 years says yes, because my meandering journey set us up to look at the landscape differently. So step up, whether you feel ready or not. Step up and say yes. Finally, be vulnerable and optimistic. For me, vulnerability is another one that came with age, just like identifying my weaknesses. It came with failure as well. A year into my tech CEO role, I was given 6 months to raise funding. And there's a whole session of lessons learned in that one statement alone. But we'll move past that. For the first 3 months of that 6 months I was given, I kept the problem and that situation completely to myself. I was having dozens of conversations and getting nowhere, 0 bites. People weren't interested. But as a leader who cares deeply for her team, I decided I needed to let the team know, because I wanted them to start looking for jobs. Even if I ended up losing my critical team members, I wanted them to land on their feet. And so I took them aside, I talked to them, and they started job hunting. As my deadline approached, I was still having potential conversations, some more warmer than others, but still hadn't gotten anywhere. And as that deadline approached, it was obvious that I was not going to make it. And so I talked with my investor, and I ended up writing a letter to all of our current clients to shut down the company. It was the single most humbling and distressing moment of my career, that everyone who worked for me was not going to have a job, that I was letting our clients down. And so I took it back to the investor. We looked at it together, and he said, you know what? What do your prospects look like? I'm like, well, I have a couple who are still, they're interested. They're calling back. We're continuing to talk. And he said, okay, I will bridge 1 more month and let's see where it takes you. Well, continued to scramble, and I ended up landing the perfect investor for the time period that we were in. But through all of that, I remained optimistic. One of my friends who is a head of sales, she laughed and she said, honey, the fun doesn't start until they've said no at least 3 times. And that just stuck with me. Relentless optimism. Be vulnerable, let your team know, invite others into your journey, but also be optimistic so that you can get through any of those dark times, because boy, is there opportunity and a success in the future. After learning that, I really entered a phase of self-reflection and ultimately what I call let it go. There's 2 points. One is self-reflect. How are things going? Are you the right leader? How's the organization doing? How's my team doing? What can I do differently? What is my role in this? I talk to my boys about this all the time. What did you do? What is your role in this experience? But honestly, as I was transitioning from technology to Texan by nature, and I mentioned my self-reflection earlier, I was questioning whether I was that right leader. And I ended up sitting down with my investor, who I thought would be annoyed because he's a powerhouse. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's always pushing forward. And he said, no, I ask myself that all the time. And he said, it's a mark of a strong leader that they can self-reflect and really own what piece they can change and what piece they can't. So next is let it go. So when you do that self-reflection, or when you receive that feedback, once you've reflected and made your decision, once you've really heard it, once you've decided what you can change, let it go. This is for all leaders, but particularly those who will vacillate endlessly. Take what you can and move on. This is something that I didn't do as well earlier in my career. 10 years ago, I've received feedback throughout. I work too hard. I have weird connotations around that. But in hearing that feedback, 10 years ago, I would have endlessly wanted to prove it wrong. Now I accept it. I change what I can. I make myself softer where it's necessary, and I move on. And in letting it go, it frees up mind space and joy for innovation. And so I encourage you to find ways, whatever those reflections and whatever those methodologies are, to be able to move on after your self-reflection and after feedback that's hard. And finally, own your journey, own your voice. My journey, it's perhaps interesting in some ways, boring in others. It is, however, mine. I'm truly the only person in the world with my accumulation of experiences, both good and bad. And I find this freeing. When I look at my path from the perspective of it being unique, I began sharing more of my experiences and more of myself, and doors began to open. You have an equally unique and freeing path. Owning your journey is just that first step. You embrace your background, you own that journey, but give that journey airtime. Recognize its contribution and demand to be heard. Giving that journey airtime and your perspective and creativity, it's a gift. And if you nurture it, it will grow and grow and grow. So own it and enjoy it. These are the few lessons I've learned so far. I encourage each of you to think through the journey and assess what you've learned. Are they the same? Are they different? How do they come together uniquely for you? Share something, embrace something that you may not have before. This is your niche. It's where you see the world differently. This is what will keep you on your personal path to innovation. Embrace that. Bring your what ifs, bring your journey, bring your soul, bring your passion, bring your grit, bring your own brand of badass to the table every single day. I'm excited to hopefully meet you guys in person one day. And I've truly enjoyed sharing my journey, and I hope to hear about yours. So if there are, I think there may be a couple of minutes for questions if there are any.
All right. Thank you, Joni. That was amazing. I think my hashtag today from yours, give that journey airtime. I actually love that. We have one question for you. What book has had the largest impact on your journey?
Oh, goodness. That is a great question. There's no one book. It's books that have had a different place in time. I think that the autobiographies and some of the learnings from people who have been so strong and embraced who they are, unbroken always sticks in my mind. But one that I read recently is The Girl with Seven Names. And it's about a girl who came out of North Korea. And if you think about what I watched through, embrace your background, know your weaknesses. She did all of those things when she was like 18. And anyway, I highly recommend that and reading it through a leadership lens and just a resilience lens. It's a truly amazing story.
I like that. I like that. Well, Joni, you were great. For everybody who may have just come in on parts of it, you can see the rebroadcast on YouTube if you look up DSW. And we are excited to now turn it over to the next part. Tracy, take it away.
Thank you so much. That was incredible. Thank you so much. I think we all need to share that, right? And we need to look at things in different lenses, and we need to know where we came from in order to get to where we're going. So, Joni, thank you so much. And tell Mrs. Bush we all said hello.
Yes.
Thank you. The one that kicked it
off. Listen, this is a time for a quick potty break. Get your coffee, get your Diet Coke, because we are coming back in about a few minutes to talk about customer segmentation. And it's a super, super important thing in your business to know who your customer really is. Back right after this.